The Philadelphia Eagles have officially revealed the guys they will be bringing in before the NFL draft. And while this is not always certain, it definitely is a good indicator in terms of where they could be leaning. We'll also hear from some of the top NFL draft experts and what their early predictions for the Eagles are. And we'll talk about whether it aligns with Howie Roseman's strategy. At the end of the day, we know anything can happen, but the Birds need to nail this draft like they have over the last several years. So we'll talk about their current needs and a whole bunch more, but welcome into A to Z Philly. I'm RB. Do me a favor, like this video, go down below and subscribe to our channel. And we're going to start this one off just like we did a couple days ago with some humor, right? Because the Giants are the gift that keeps on giving. A couple days ago, I said it was Saquon. Well, now I'm saying it's his former team because a couple days ago we come on and they signed Jameis Winston and we thought, oh man, what a revelation, right? Well, now they signed Russell Wilson. And I hear this news last night as I'm out, and I'm like, oh, what is it, a $6-7 million deal? They signed Russell Wilson to a 1-year, $21 million deal. $10.5 million guaranteed for Russell Wilson. We're talking about the same guy who crumpled down the end of the season. Remember how big of a controversial game this was? Oh, Jalen's got to throw. Jalen's got to throw. Russell Wilson went 14 for 22. 128 yards. He crumpled. You saw how the Steelers crumbled. You saw how their season ended because Russell Wilson fell off. I'm not trying to throw shade at Russell Wilson. He's been a heck of a player, right? Maybe a Hall of Famer. He's a Super Bowl champ. Russell Wilson got his bag. Shout out to him. But the Giants are just terrible, and it makes me laugh. A couple days ago, I said 2 easy wins on the schedule. I mean it. 2 easy wins. You can mark the Eagles in at 2-0. This guy's 36. Their quarterback room is Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Tommy DeVito. Who's next? Shedeur Sanders? I mean, the Giants really just do not know what they are doing, and it makes me laugh. So shout out to the Giants and shout out to Russell Wilson. Speaking of an actual good quarterback, though, how about Jalen Hurts? How about what Vic Fangio had to say about him? Quote, he has no weakness. I told Howie back in 2021 that he had his quarterback. Well, I believe that Vic Fangio can read quarterbacks, can read talent. We saw what he did this year. What a coordinator. I am just so happy that that guy's here. I think when you start to break off pieces of the coaching staff, it really messes, not only with the philosophy, but the confidence, things like that. And Vic Fangio knows what he's talking about, and Jalen Hurts is on pace to being one of the great quarterbacks in the NFL, if not already. But let's talk about some of the other pieces on this team because the NFL draft's coming up. And yeah, the Eagles had the last pick in the first round, but there's a lot that could happen. Okay, so I took some time and I'm starting to research these prospects, and I was on the NFL mock draft database. Here are some of the guys that they have mocked to the Eagles at 32. Nick Emenwari, Walter Nolan, Gray Zabel, Nick Scourton, Donovan Jackson, Josh Connerly Jr., Donovan Ezeraku, Derek Harmon, and Tyler Booker. All right, those are some of the names that the Eagles could potentially draft at pick 32. Now, before I start talking about the experts and what the Eagles actually did, I went ahead and I ran 3 mock drafts myself just to start us off, okay? And I ran it through the system, and I just wanted to see some of the players that it would spit out. So in my first draft, the Eagles take Malachi Starks at pick number 32, right? We talked about him last week. Safety out of Georgia, makes a lot of sense. Just a guy who graded really well at the combine. Then on the second attempt, I got Landon Jackson, an edge out of Arkansas. Definitely makes sense, in terms of the positional need and, how he loves drafting in the trenches. So we'll talk about that. And then on my third attempt, I got Malachi Starks again. So I've seen Malachi Starks mocked in the 20s, especially to the Detroit Lions. They say he really, fits that culture, similar to the Georgia Bulldogs. And I hope he's there at 32. Could Howie trade up? Keep in mind, they have 20 draft picks in the next 2 years. Do I expect them to make all 20 picks? No. Howie Roseman likes to consolidate picks. He likes to add more, and I could see him using those to move up or, maybe moving back and adding more. So we'll see what happens, but those are the guys that I got when I did my own mock drafts. However, something happened, all right? And I want you to keep this in mind. Last year, the Eagles brought in Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Anais Smith, and Johnny Wilson, right? They brought those guys in before the draft, and out of all the guys they brought in, those were the ones they drafted. So while it is not always 100%, the guys that are brought in, right, for top 30 visits to come in beforehand, see the NovaCare, all that stuff, it means the Eagles have a decent level of interest in these guys, right? There's no coincidence that these guys were drafted by the Eagles. And the new pre-draft visit list has been put out for every team, and the Eagles have announced who they are bringing in before the NFL draft. So they have Josh Connerly, guy we just saw, right? Anthony Belton, Marcus Embo, Jalen Travis, Jaden Blue, Elijah Roberts, Donovan Izaraku, who we just saw as well, Charles Grant, Tyler Barron, and Maxwell Hairston. So Eagles have a lot of guys on their radar, a lot of guys they're bringing in. And if we go and we look at the experts and who they think the Eagles are going to take just as, a preliminary thing, and shout out to Dave Zangaro, who kind of consolidated a bunch of different expert opinions here in one article. We have one for Josh Connerly, offensive tackle out of Oregon. We have another for Josh Connerly. That's two. We have Shamar Stewart, an edge out of Texas A&M. Then we have Malachi Starks, who we just saw on my mock draft that I ran. Then we have Walter Nolan, and they actually have him trading up here to pick 26 to get Walter Nolan, and then another Walter Nolan right here. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have two Walter Nolans, two Josh Connerlys, one Shamar Stewart, and one Malachi Starks. So where do the Eagles go? What is their most likely option? Well, honestly, I think it depends on what happens with Dallas Goedert, right? We still don't have any update. We don't know what's going on. Are they going to trade him, cut him? I still think it would be a monumental mistake to go out there and cut Dallas Goedert when you don't have his replacement in place, right? You don't have a guy who's ready to step in and be that guy. I hope they draft a tight end in the first couple rounds. I hope they develop somebody, but letting go of Dallas Goedert, who again, not only has put up a lot of production, even though he's been hurt every year, he plays well in the big games. He makes big catches, big plays, and he's a much better blocker than other guys who have been in this organization. I really like Dallas Goedert. I know his time is coming to an end in the next couple of years, but he's been so productive, and I think until you have the guy that's ready to step in, like the Dallas Goedert was to Zach Ertz, you don't go out there and you don't cut him or trade him. So we'll see what happens. But based on history, based on what Howie Roseman likes to do, where do I think he's going in the first round? Absolutely in the trenches, right? And the first guy on this list, Josh Connerly Jr., this is a guy who's been talked about for the last couple months. I've heard his name brought up with the Philadelphia Eagles, right? We've had the Malachi Starks of the world, the Georgia guys. That would make a lot of sense. And, matter of fact, the Eagles have never taken a safety in the first round. So, of course, you look back to last year, right? They didn't take a corner in how long, and they take Quinyon Mitchell. But anyway, Josh Connerly Jr. sounds like a very safe pick for the Eagles. And here's what Dave said about it, and I completely agree with him. Lane Johnson, who just signed a one-year extension, what was it, last week and a half ago, is now under contract through the 27-28 season, which means he has 3 years left now on his deal. And the Eagles like to bring in these big offensive linemen, train them, make them more versatile, and get them ready to go for when these guys retire. It's going to be really sad when Lane walks away. I mean, he's in his mid-30s. Can he hang up the next couple years? I hope he can stay in there. But if he can't, drafting his replacement makes a lot of sense. Now, do they wait a year or two to do that, or do they do it now? I think it all depends on the best talent available, right? If a guy's there like Josh Connerly Jr. and they believe in him, then you have to take him. And it says here that the Eagles actually did this with Lane Johnson back in 2013, if you remember. They drafted Lane Johnson to be the potential replacement for Jason Peters. Now, Lane ended up being an absolute beast, moved over to right tackle. The rest was history. They did it with Cam Jurgens. But here's the difference, right? Think about Cam Jurgens. He moved inside, right? When Kelsey was still here, they were training him, but he moved inside, played pretty damn good at guard. Why can't they do that with Josh Connerly? The Eagles have a void right now. Tyler Steen is going to be battling. Kenyon Green, who they traded for, is going to be battling. But they don't really have anybody they are ultra confident in right now. So if they bring in Josh Connerly Jr., and it says here, this guy's not even 22 years old yet. He won't turn 22 until November. He's rather young, little bit of a smaller prospect at tackle, 6'5", 311 pounds. And here's the most important thing. It says at the Senior Bowl, Connerly got a chance to line up at right tackle and at guard, which is important for his evaluation. So he's willing to be a hybrid. He's willing to be versatile, dynamic. This guy makes so much sense for the Eagles. It sounds like a typical Howie Roseman pick. And if they bring in a guy who not only can be Lane Johnson's replacement, but also play guard, I think it makes all the sense in the world. So I do like this philosophy, but I could also see Howie trying to replace some of the voids that were created with Josh Sweat, with Milton Williams. That's where guys like Shamar Stewart come in. Or if he wants to boost that secondary, I talked about Justin Simmons. I think that would be a good temporary option and maybe try to draft a guy. If Malachi Starks is still there for some reason at the end of the first round, which I really do not think he will be, maybe they trade up. But if not, and he is there for some reason, I think the Eagles have to jump on it. And I would not hesitate to take another Georgia guy, bring him in. The fit is seamless as always. So that's how I kind of feel right now. I don't think it's ironed in on one position. I think it's between a few different positional groups. I think it's what Howie has done historically and what they need right now. But I would say over the first couple rounds, based on the preliminary stuff we're hearing, it's probably either the trenches or the secondary. There's no reason to really go anywhere else unless you're trading Dallas Goedert and you need to go get a tight end right away. And there's one there that just blows you away. But I trust Howie, and we'll see what happens. We'll see how it plays out, and we'll get into more prospects as we move forward. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to know from you, who do you think the Eagles should go out and draft in the first round? If it was up to you, what position would you go with? Give me your thoughts down below, and we'll get into more as we move forward. But appreciate everybody for tapping in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I'll catch you on the next one.